I was very blessed in my life to have the loving family that I had and that I have, to have the choices that I've had, to have the education that I've had, and to have a family that understood the power of education. But when I was in college, I wasn't sure where life was going to take me. I was a major in English, and I thought that I wanted to go to graduate school in English. Sometimes it takes a person. Maybe you've met that person. Maybe you met that person today. Maybe you'll meet that person tomorrow. But sometimes it takes a person to prod us to make a choice in a certain direction that can change our lives. That person for me came in the form of an English professor. His name was Gardner Taplin. He was an 18th century British lit scholar. I asked him if he would write a recommendation for me to go to graduate school in English, and he said no. I was shocked, totally and completely shocked. And I said, no. And he said, no, you shouldn't go to graduate school in English. And I said, well, why? And he looked at me. You have to just picture this man. He was dressed in New Orleans in tweed three-piece suit. It was not a good thing. Not good, but he was a sweet man. And he said, are you willing to bask in the reflected light of some man's glory for the rest of your life? And I thought, I don't know, who do you have in mind? And then I thought, oh no, I better be a little bit more mature. I said, well, I don't know. Why are you asking me that? And he said, don't you know about Carla Hills? And I didn't know about Carla Hills. Carla Hills had just been appointed a cabinet secretary and by President Ford. She was only the third woman, this is in the 1970s, only the third woman ever to be appointed a cabinet secretary. Even to today, we've only had 25 women serve in a president's cabinet, to today. Stunning, isn't it? Stunning. But he told me I could be more than I thought I could be. He told me he saw me as a lawyer. I'd never considered it. My father was a lawyer. My father was a judge. Why hadn't I considered it? I think it's because I was a girl. Really. It just didn't dawn on me. I feel foolish when I say that to you now, but it didn't dawn on me. And that professor literally opened every other avenue of my life. There is nothing good that happened in my life since then that would have happened without that decision. Going to law school, becoming a lawyer, struggling in the trenches, fighting for a partner, doing all those things, changed the path of my life. And all because of that 18th century British lit professor. How lucky I was to have that man in my life. How lucky I was. I think in some ways we can be frozen by our fear of failure. But the truth is, the real failure is not trying. The real failure is not putting yourself out there. The real failure is letting indecision become a decision. Anybody can do nothing. Anybody can let life happen to them. But it really, really takes somebody, a powerful woman, to make life happen for them. And I think women are, by definition, powerful. You know, yes, I clap for that. We are women, hear us roar. We just have to believe in ourselves. I made one of the most wonderful choices in my life when I decided to marry Ted Kennedy. I say that with all the love and sincerity in my heart. Now, there were some people, I think, who weren't sure about that at the time. I knew I was right. I knew the man. And with that decision, I mean, he was the love of my life. He was the love of my life. And with that decision started a journey that I could not even have imagined, and put me on a path, even a professional path, that was so different from anything I had ever imagined. I made the decision to leave the practice of law. Not to retire, although people kept asking me, so what are you doing now? As though I were somehow not doing anything. When I had never been busier in my life, because I had this great chance to have my life totally meshed with Teddy's and to be involved in all the issues he was involved in. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that we should be involved in the actions and passions of our time or risk not to have lived. I was alive, never more alive. I was involved in every issue that mattered in the life of our country. And I was lucky enough to be involved in being involved in those issues with the love of my life. I was involved in strategy sessions, discussions, all those things. It was thrilling. But if I hadn't been that lawyer that Gardner Taplin encouraged to go to law school and pursued that career, I wouldn't have had the tools to be that involved, to do those substantive issues. Before Teddy got sick, and after, he talked to me about throwing my hat in the ring for the Senate seat if he weren't here. I refused to have that conversation with him every time he raised it. It was never a discussion. He was the Senator Kennedy. He was Senator Kennedy. And that was it for me. After he was gone, the pressure was intense to change my mind, to go another way. And in a funny way, as big a decision as that would have been, it would have almost been easier to say yes, at least in the short run, than it was to say no, which I did about 1 million times, but no one seemed to hear that I was saying no. I mean, I continually said no, and they'd go, yes, but maybe she's going to really, maybe no might mean yes, you know, that whole old business. It was terrible. And I kept saying, no, really, it's not for me, but it kind of stayed out there. Why do I say it was difficult? It's because people told me that they'll say I'm doing it from a position of weakness. Because I'm in grief. Because I'm afraid of the rough and tumble. Well, yeah, I'm still in grief. And I don't find that weak. I miss my husband. That's life. I don't find that weak at all. And no, I'm really not afraid of the rough and tumble. I've been there, done that. You know, that doesn't bother me at all. So that didn't mean anything. But it's interesting the reaction that I got when I made phone calls, when I finally, at the beginning of this year, just tried to put that fire out once and for all. And I called one leader in Washington to say, really, I meant it, I mean it, I'm not running. And the answer was, well, what do you expect us to do now, Vicki? I said, well, I really don't know. But I'll be glad to help you and support whoever does run. But it's so, as I say, the path of least resistance, at least in that moment, probably would have been to say yes. But I have never felt better about a decision. And the decision is, I want to continue with fighting for the causes that Teddy fought for, doing the work that he did, but I don't want his job. He was Senator Kennedy.